Hi, folks. John Dunn here, RPG freelancer, publisher behind Melior Via. I'm up here today with Mikey.
What is up, John? Happy New Year. How's it going?
Happy New Year. Temperature's starting to drop a little bit. I had to bring out my heavy, cold weather cap. So,
exactly.
Yeah, things are changing.
I think I'm going to wear a parka next episode. So
I think it's even supposed to snow pretty soon.
Yeah,
so,
we're right there by the
stuff's getting
lake.
real. Yeah.
Yep.
Today, I thought we might cover some medical topics.
Okay. We haven't done so in a minute. So
Yeah, see, I thought we'd talk about a doctor.
Okay. What doctor?
The Doctor Who, of
Okay.
course. Yes,
Okay.
right? So that was a terrible lead-in. But nonetheless, we're going to talk about Doctor Who,
That was pretty
60
great.
Years of Adventure. There's actually 2 volumes in this. I'm just going to talk about the first one today, Book 1. This covers the classic era Doctor Who stuff up until right around 1990, and then the 8th Doctor movie as well. The modern era material is covered in a later book, but I grew up with this stuff. Did you ever watch any Doctor Who?
No, I never had the opportunity or the pleasure.
Okay,
My grandmother's a big fan.
fair enough. It was on
of
PBS when I was a kid.
Yep.
So, yeah, there'd be a pledge drive and then you'd see an episode.
Aren't
right?
there many different reiterations of it as well? Like different actors?
So the first episode came out in 1963, the day after Kennedy was shot, right? And then it just kind of rolled from there.
That's a very odd starting point, but like...
Yeah, it's a very memorable one, though. When you hear, this is the date, you go, okay, yeah, I can remember that.
I don't know what to think.
So this book is for the second edition of the Doctor Who role-playing game from Cubicle 7. Full disclosure, there is also the Doctors and Dialects game, which we also have on the shelf, which is the 5th edition compatible version of Doctor Who role-playing. This book is not intended for that, but there's a lot of content in here that isn't game mechanics, so you could probably still leverage this content with that game as well. This is very much a team effort project. David Chapman is listed as the producer. He did work on a lot of Doctor Who products. He also has done quite a bit of work for Unisystem and the Star Trek Adventures game. In fact, I think he worked on the Klingon book that we talked about.
Oh, nice. Bad guys.
So Doctor Who second edition came out in the first quarter of 2022. So it's been out for about 2 years now. And this is probably a replacement for the individual Doctor's books that came out in first edition. I think we still have a few of those on the shelf as well up here, but there was one of those volumes that were around 128 pages or so for each of the different Doctors. This one kind of condenses that, so you get the first 8 Doctors all in one volume. I think it's probably a little more useful format for most game groups, but it's certainly less comprehensive, so keep that in mind. Going through the book, it starts off with an introduction that kind of takes you through the origins of Doctor Who, since remember this is the first iteration of it, and then it goes through the book organization. One of the things that's important in here that it mentions right off the bat is that there's a campaign that's kind of threaded across all the different Doctors and across both books. So if you get both volumes, there's an adventure for each of the Doctors, and you could play each of those adventures in sequence with the Doctor and their companions. If you look at the cover, there's this little crystalline shard there. That's kind of the center part of that campaign, the Terran Cod Diamond. It seems like a really cool campaign. Not going to get into any spoilers on it for you, but the concept that there was an adventure that incorporates all of these characters at once, I think that's pretty cool.
That is pretty epic.
Yep. So then after that, there's 8 chapters, one dedicated to each of the 8 Doctors. In there, you get kind of a commentary on the types of adventures that they had, the themes that were particularly applicable to each Doctor, and then some, generally the most important companions. So, Mikey, you know much about Doctor Who?
No, not really. I know about the, what do we call
the TARDIS.
Yeah, the TARDIS.
The police
I keep
box,
forgetting
right?
the darn name.
Time and relative dimensions in space.
Okay.
Yeah, so like I said, watched Doctor Who as a kid. My first nerd convention was a Doctor Who convention.
Okay, so it kind of was an inspiration / path into your nerdom.
Oh, definitely.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool then.
And the Doctor is this, he's not quite immortal, but he, at least because of the plot, he is, right? Time Lord, who's this entity from the planet Gallifrey, and every time he would die, he regenerates into a different iteration of himself, and that's how we have different Doctors.
Okay.
All right, so every time they bring a new actor in, the character regenerates into that new actor.
Oh, okay.
And so each of the actors have a kind of a different approach to the character, but they all use the TARDIS as their time and space travel machine to travel around. And it's not the most reliable thing in the world, so maybe the travels don't always go as they should. And then he travels with companions. These are people he picks up in different eras and different places who come along for the ride and adventure with him.
I just remember the fork. Is there a fork? Some special fork involved with that?
You're probably thinking of the
lore?
Sonic screwdriver.
Sonic screwdriver.
Yeah.
I think that's what it was. I saw that in my grandma's kitchen a long time ago.
Okay, fair enough. So the first Doctor, like I said, things started in 1963, and generally as things go along, for some reason the Doctor tends to have a reason to be in whatever the current time that the filming was taking place. So the first Doctor kind of took place in the swinging 60s. And so that's a big theme for his adventures. Also notably, the first two Doctors, everything was in black and white because the budget didn't allow for color filming yet.
Nice.
Right? Also, it was a TV show, and there just weren't that many color TVs out there. So in addition to covering the Doctor and his personality, and, he's kind of abrasive, the companions who are presented are Ian Chesterton, Barbara Wright, Susan Foreman, and Polly Wright. So you get four of the companions who played a big part of those adventures. Moving on to the second Doctor. Second Doctor was a little less brusque, but he was kind of more of a moral crusader. So that's the big theme that's pushed as we explore his storyline. He also played a recorder.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so
He's
just
a
like
bit of
hot
a
cross
character.
buns out of nowhere?
A little bit, yeah. His companions were Ben Jackson, Jamie Crimmin, Victoria Waterfield, and Zoe Harriet that are featured in the book. After that, we get into the third Doctor. The third Doctor had probably the most epic hair of all the Doctors, kind of this blonde, curly, almost Farrah Fawcett-y kind of hairstyle. And he was exiled in the 1970s UK. So he didn't really get to use the TARDIS much. Instead, he had like a Model T style car that drove around everywhere. And he worked with this group called UNIT, which was the United Nations something task force. I don't remember what the I stands for. So the Brigadier was the guy that was in charge of UNIT, and that's one of the companions that are presented here, along with Liz Shaw, Joe Grant, and Sarah Jane Smith. Sarah Jane Smith was an actress whose character recurred as a companion multiple times, including in the modern era.
Okay.
So seeing her here is pretty cool, to me at least. The fourth Doctor was played by the actor Tom Baker. He's the one that had the crazy long scarf. You might have seen that, right? It's got like this 20-foot long scarf that he wraps around himself. And he was actually in the role for much longer, about twice as long as the other actors had been. So he built up quite a number of adventures compared to the first few Doctors.
He stayed alive a little longer.
He's still alive. Well, the actor's still alive, but yeah.
Yeah, but like his character
his
Doctor
lasted more seasons.
Oh,
definitely.
wow.
Yeah,
Nice.
so I think he had 6 seasons, whereas all the others had just had 3.
Yeah.
And his themes tended to be gothic horror. So there was a lot of elements of monsters that happened throughout. Characters that were presented as his companions here are Harry Sullivan, Romana, who was another Time Lord, and she had 2 incarnations. So they're both presented here. K9, which I don't know if you've ever seen him. K9 was a little robot dog who kind of followed the Doctor around.
No, maybe.
K9's awesome.
Maybe.
Somewhere I have a remote control K9.
Yeah.
But that's
and somewhere I have Google to look at this.
There you go. And then Leela, who was basically a Amazonian warrior type from a primitive planet who joined him for his adventures. The fifth Doctor is my favorite Doctor, Peter Davison. He was much more human, and his stuff really happened kind of in the 1980s. He wore a cricket jacket and a stalk of celery attached to it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because everybody needs to wear a stalk of celery, right?
Need some ranch with that.
Companions that are presented for him are Nyssa, Adric, Tegan, and Visler Thurlow. And then we get into the sixth Doctor. The sixth Doctor was played by Colin Baker, who was actually Tom Baker's cousin.
Oh, nice.
He only lasted 1 year. He was kind of obnoxious in the part, kind of confident, flamboyant, and very Gallifreyan. Now, Gallifrey, I mentioned the Time Lords come from Gallifrey, right? Only one companion is presented with him. That's Perpigillium Brown, who's known as Perry, which is also the name of our dog.
Oh, nice.
Which is, partly named for her.
Inspiration.
Yes. And the seventh Doctor, who was very heroic, very focused on justice, and very, very British.
Very British.
Yes. Companions presented with him are Melanie Bush and Ace, whose full name was Dorothy Gale McShane. Finally, we get into the eighth Doctor. The eighth Doctor first showed up in a movie, right? And there was a hope that there'd be a TV series that would spin off of this movie, and the TV series was never made. So he got a movie. There's about a bajillion audiobooks about him, but there's not a lot of other content that happened.
Okay.
And then there was a thought that, kind of they justified it a little bit when they did the modern era stuff that, there was this time war. And so a lot of his adventures, they're not sure if they really happened because time was rewritten because of the time war.
Interesting.
The two companions that are presented to him are the two that appeared in that film, and that's Grace Holloway and Chang Li. If you're interested in exploring the classic era, or you're interested in running that campaign that covers all the Doctors, this is a really cool pickup. It's full color artwork throughout. It is hardcover. I say full color artwork throughout, but when you get into the first and second Doctors, yeah, that's going to be black and white because the stills from that era are in black and white. What a shock. Cubicle 7, 128 pages, $40. Got copies up here on the shelf at Immortals Inc. or available at immortalsinc.com.
Well said, John. Go ahead and check it out for yourselves in the description and have a good one.
Till next time, folks. Good gaming.